Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Alley here with you on Inspired Online. And today we are staying in England and we are going out to the lovely Elliot Kay. Now, Elliot has been on the London Inspired stage a few times, never only online. So we're delighted that he could join us today. For those of you who don't know who Elliot is, you should if you are wanting to get into speaking. Well, I mean, come on. But for those of you who are not getting into speaking and would like to get into it a bit more, Elliot is the co-founder of Speaker Express, which helps speakers really develop their art. And the live events are so great in terms of being this really open, supportive, wonderful environment to actually get to learn to talk and share your message on stage. He's also the author of 4 books, including the best-selling Power to Succeed. And just from personal experience, he's got an amazing, creative, charismatic style on stage. I think you've had a bit of a theatre background as well. So it's...
Yeah, a little bit. And ago, that feels like years ago. In fact, it is years ago.
I think it's all wonderful. It's such a delicious background to have in this career. So welcome. Thank you for
Thank you.
Today. Our first question I'm going to ask you, slightly different from our live events. That's given we're doing a bit of a Q&A format. Let's start with, if you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
My wisdom with the world in a nutshell. Wow, deep. I would say it's something like, this too shall pass, would be one deep, insightful wisdom. I'm well aware I'm not the only person in the world to ever say this. I would say invest quickly, invest wisely, and don't be afraid. That would be my wisdom. So this too shall pass, invest wisely, invest quickly, and don't be afraid. Oh.
Nice. Okay. So, well, let's unpick that a little bit. I'm going to start with the second one, initially, which was invest quickly and invest wisely. Why quickly? Because, I mean,
let me qualify that. Yes, let me qualify that before. So what I mean by that, when you were asking me that, instinctively, I kind of, in my mind, went back to all these opportunities where I could have invested my time in a great project and invested my money in some great opportunities, and I held off, and then I lost the opportunity. So what I'm saying is invest quickly. I don't mean don't think about things. I don't think don't weigh things up, but don't take too long. And I think I don't think I know, had I made certain investment choices, both time and money, differently, I would have been in a very different place now. So that's what I mean by that. I don't mean like rush and get, someone says it's so good and run up and sign up. That's not what I mean. I mean, just get to decisions quicker is, I suppose, what I should say there to qualify it better.
Yeah, well, no, and that's great, actually. I remember, personally going to my first Tony Robbins event as a participant. I used to work at the events prior to that, and I was about 24, 25, and he sold his kind of big level program, and I paid a lot more to do it many years later.
Yeah, there is that, absolutely.
And I would have had, some of my 20s having that knowledge, so that was something I valued. So I can really see sense in that. But let's look at what is wise, because running up to the front of the room and being attracted in the moment maybe isn't wise.
No, I agree.
How do you know the difference between wisdom and impulse?
I think the way I know, and I can call it, is intuitively there's a different feeling. Like impulse, it's high energy, it's in your heart's pumping, it's like a feeling of drinking too much coffee, right? So when you're rushing to that room, the back of the room, or you're rushing, and that fear of scarcity, you might lose out, that's an impulse. For me, when it's what was the other word you used? Impulse or
intuition, I guess.
Intuition is what I said. Is it's a calm decision. It might be a quick decision, but there's a calmness about it. There's a good feeling about it. Doesn't mean intuition's always right, by the way.
No.
Yeah. But I know everybody that I've worked with, mostly I've gone by my intuition. Of course, I've talked to them. I've interviewed them, people I've hired. I've done certain processes, but intuitively it's felt right. So the guy I'm working with right now on marketing, I didn't check his website out. I spoke to one person who I knew worked with him. I connected with him. And this is what I mean by investing quickly. Had I made a decision quicker, I would have worked with him a month before all this would have kicked off. I would have been at a different point. But I gave it a month, and then we came back, and then I decided to work with him. And both time, intuitively, it was the right thing. There's a calmness about it. It's not hectic. It's not panicky, which is what you feel when it's impulsive.
Yeah. And I'd endorse that actually, in terms of, you know, when you're working with professionals and stuff. I see so many people that have gone and decided to not work with professionals, muddle along themselves, face the consequences, and then I'm sure you get this too, come to you when, oh, you know, I messed up. You know, what do
Yes.
I do now? And then it makes my life more challenging if you come to me in that state. Not that I won't help you, but you know, we're now having to unpick lots of bits and pieces.
Yeah, and that's that whole argument that that's that person's journey, and that would they have arrived to where they needed to arrive had they done things differently. I think in certain situations that's valid, but I think in other situations, if someone that's great at marketing can save you a lot of time and a lot of mistakes, they're worth the money. You
Yeah.
know, I get the whole that's the journey when you're like on a personal development journey, and you never would have got to where you are today without those lessons. I completely respect that. I used to be a coach. I don't coach anymore. Um, so I respect each other's model of the world and stuff like that. But I do think when it comes to business and practicalities, you can do things differently, and you can avoid a lot of pain by using the right people. Now that's the hard thing. I've said, for example, finding the right person is a bit like going on dates, right? When it comes to the right business partner, when it comes to the right partner, when it comes to the right marketing person, you got to kiss a lot of frogs, and then you find your prince or princess, right? And it takes time, literally finding the right team for you is a dating game, because everything's great at the beginning, it's just like a date. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been on the dating scene for a while now, but um, everything's great. They smell great. They say the right things, everything. And then,
Always.
well, okay, not always, but, let's say that things start off on the right way, but
Okay.
then very quickly the gaps appear, right? And that's what happens when you're looking for the right, I don't know, FD, MD, or the right marketing guy, the right social media person. You're going to have to kiss a lot of frogs. But when you find that right person, then they're worth the money. And yeah, I do think we have to go on this journey and we have to find these things. But I think when it comes to business, you can avoid a lot of that.
Okay. So I'm going to ask maybe an impossible question,
Go
but
on.
how can you kiss as less frogs as possible? I don't even know if that was grammatically correct, but you see what I mean?
How can you kiss? I mean, in the
Even amount
business
of frogs.
context, or are we talking in life?
Well, go with both if you've got an answer.
I'll answer to the best of my ability. I think in business, yes. I think you have to qualify the person. That's where like really checking people out. Social proof is a massive. Do speak to people that worked with people. Um, in my experience, if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And equally, if your intuition's yelling at you, then don't kiss them. Um, Interesting metaphor we've gone down here.
Yeah,
But,
well, I'm just
but if,
going with it. Why not? It makes sense, right?
yeah, well, most people can relate to that, right? Bad dates, good dates. And I think intuitively it feels right. And you just do some fact checking and you go beyond kind of what they put on their website, because we all know that can be contrived. But you speak to people that actually work, people you trust that work with them, then you can avoid kissing the wrong frogs. I think in life, when we're talking generally, when we're going through our sort of our life mastery, our life journey, I do think there's a great deal of value in kind of um, kissing the wrong frogs at times. I think it's when we go back continuously to kiss the wrong frogs. Uh, and we find ourselves in relationships and situations that are detrimental to us, that's when we've got to make the decision to change. And I think a lot of people, as we know, find comfort, they find familiarity, they almost find comfort in kissing the wrong frogs. And that's when it's destructive, and that's when it's dangerous, and that's when the path has to change, like disruptive and destructive relationships, controlling relationships, psychologically controlled relationships, manipulation, abuse. That's when you've got to step out of that. I don't see the value in sticking it out, regardless of what the ends of the journey. And I know some coaches and people are like, no, but that's their path, that's their job. But if you have the power to intervene and you have the power to do something about it, why wouldn't you? And that's one of the gripes I've kind of had with the PD world. It's always been like, no, they need to go on their journey. They need to be ready. You remove that from a different context. If your mate's going through a terrible time, you won't sit there and go, oh my God, they're going through a terrible, no, they need to go through that path. You'd go in, you'd step in, you'd have a go at them, you'd shake them up, you go, look, this can't go on. But for some reason, when it comes to like the coaching, personal development world, it's like, no, they need to go, they need to be ready, they need to go on their path. And I've always found that really irritating, because I would like to think that if I'm heading to a destructive path, someone would intervene on me and not simply go, no, it's your journey. Like, come on, like, that's not right. And then how many times have we heard, oh, if only I said something, if only I did something, and it's too late. That person's like gone, or that partner took it out and then one step too far. I know we're going extremities here, but it's soul destroying when you knew you could have done something, just one tiny gesture, or and anyway, a little bit of a rant there.
No, it's okay. Well, it's you raised a really interesting topic, and this is not necessarily in business, but what would you say about that very fine line between, that person who's not open to help and that person who you can actually give that kind of advice? And just to make this even more juicy, it could be a friend, and it could be that you've seen they're going out with the wrong person, who you've got this instinct, they're not, and yet they're not going to be open to hear it because in the moment they're so in love or whatever it is.
I think, yeah, it's a challenging one. I'll give you like one of my best friends, who's been one of my longest friends. He, like, if you took him and I, values wise, we're a complete mismatch, right? He's inherently had a problem with staying faithful, which I've always had. He's always had very destructive tendencies, and that, but I've always made it known, and I've always had a go at him when he's needed to be had a go at, and he's in the public eye, so I'm obviously not going to mention his name, but he's got millions of followers, and I'm like, you cannot behave this way. More than anything, because of like, how many more women are you going to hurt? How many more women are you going to repeat the same story where they find out from another woman? Like, you can't go on like this. You're a dad. And so I will voice my opinion. I'll keep voicing my opinion until something sinks in, and whether he listens or not, okay, that I can't control, and I'm not going to beat myself up over that, but I won't give up, because love is deeper than that, right? And I think finding the fight, if someone's utterly not, like, closed off, get out of my life, I don't want you to talk to me, Elliot, then I'm gone, right? I'm out. But as long as he's half listening, I mean, he might be angry or annoyed or pissed off, right? But as long as a part of him's listening, I'll keep nagging. And I think that's kind of the thing to remember, is if there's a tiny part of them that's still listening, as angry and pissed off as they're getting, you got to keep harping on, because one day the coin will drop. And it's not about who, you're the one that led them to the change. That's ego. But if you were the one to help facilitate and they found their way because of that, then it's your responsibility, it's your duty, right? Right now there's a member of my family that I can't reach. She's very young, she's very lost, she's got lots of problems. I can't reach her. I can't. And all I can do is hope when the day's ready that she'll come back. I accept the consequence that we might lose her to what's going on in her life. But if they're completely like, no, shut off, then you do need to make a decision and go, well, I can't control the uncontrollables. I can be there with a door that's open with love if and when she's ready, but I'm not going to beat myself up equally if she's not, and won't be. And even if she was willing and just responded and telling me to be quiet and shut up and stop nagging me, then I would carry on. But when there's nothing, then that's where you got to let go. And I grew up with a father who's an alcoholic, and you're powerless over people, right? That's one of the first things you learn. But that doesn't mean you give up on people. And I think it's not an easy line to toe. And I think we've got to be there as much as we can for people.
Yeah, I agree. I think I kind of, in my own life, I've towed the line of, I've gone both ways actually. When I was studying coaching, I was probably right in there with, I will help you. And
Yes.
it's like utter diplomacy.
Yeah.
Depending on who it is, of course. Some people still see the fire, but it stays under wraps a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise you end up kind of developing this toxicity within you, and and it's hard. It's just really hard.
I think that takes us neatly onto your first piece of wisdom that you shared with us at the beginning, which was "This too shall pass." Would you like to tell us a little more about that and why you picked that? I mean, it seems very apt right now, but
Yeah, and I think we have to remember that nothing's permanent, right? It doesn't mean there's an end goal for certain things, or an end, like it ends here. But that's something I remind myself a lot, that as long as you're moving forwards, whether you're failing forwards or 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 you're moving forwards and you're then it will pass. And it's not always easy, but it does pass. It takes time. And I think as long as you remember that nothing's permanent, it actually frees. It's quite a liberating thought to have. I see it right now. I've got 2 kids, and my wife gets a bit stressy, and she's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Look, this is going to pass. This is a phase, right? It will pass." And that's the same with us. It will pass. Like, regardless of where we are, I've suffered really deep, dark depression, and I knew the day would come that it would pass, as long as I'm doing something about it. This pandemic will pass. Like, life does go on. And I think what happens is people get so stuck in things are permanent that it makes people rigid. It makes people stiff, right? So they're not moving. So then their life appears not to be moving. And I think one of the greatest pieces of wisdom I ever heard is, it will pass. Things pass. Life goes on. You move forwards. As long as you're moving forwards, life moves forwards with you. Now, it doesn't always move, or it never moves at the pace we want it to. Ever, right? Yeah. Ever. Because if that the case, things would happen so much quicker. Nature grows at 0.000, whatever it is, 7 or 1. I can't even remember. Because that's the pace of nature, right? When we're talking about tree growth, not just nature itself.
Indeed.
That's why I chose that one, because if you get stuck in permanency of a situation, then you're stuck. Nothing moves quickly. Nothing moves. If you look at a painting as one, then it's overwhelming to think how it was painted. But if you look at detail and construct, then you can see how it came together. And a lot of people in their minds, excuse me, when they're seeing situation, what's going on, they're trying to paint the painting all at once. But if you go, you know what, I'm going to break it down. I know things will pass. What's the things I can deal with straight away? What's the things? Then it gives you that freedom to go, you know what, regardless how long it takes, it will pass. Hopefully you've been productive, you move forward, you failed forwards, you've taken actions forwards and stuff like that. Then, I hope your life doesn't just pass by. That's not the idea of that wisdom. That's the thinking behind it. What's that?
I'll just sit down and watch TV every night.
Yeah, that's not passing. That's lazy and passiveness. There's difference.
Don't worry.
But yeah, that's the thought there with that too shall pass.
Nice. Let's dig into a little bit of that concept about failing forward. And before I do, actually, I'd love to just acknowledge, I love that concept about just chunking things down a bit at a time. You know, when you were saying about the painting, I was remembering those old, you know, color paintings we had as we were kids. You know, number one is yellow, number two is purple, or whatever it is, and just take it a bit at a time when it pieces all together. But this concept of failing forwards, what if you are kind of chunking things down and nothing's really working? You know, what's the line between, you know what, that door is done and it's closed and I need to pick another one, versus I need to keep going because one day something's gonna happen with this.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because if you look at like Shazam, right? You know Shazam,
I do, I love it.
right? Well, when the guy founded it, the technology didn't exist, like a bit like Star Wars, right? When he wanted to shoot the other three, the technology didn't exist. So he worked with what he could, and then he actually hired someone to develop the technology. And the market, of course, wasn't ready for it at the time. So there's all kinds of bits and bobs that needed to happen. And then the market caught up, and then, of course, Shazam became what it became.
Yeah.
Um, and now it's actually struggling because of Spotify, because
Ah,
Spotify's disrupted the market. So
yeah.
there is that whole determination, perseverance, belief in your vision, and you keep going. And that's not just about business, by the way, that's in life. Um, I think failing forwards means you fail, you learn fast, you move on. All being well, you move on to a different level because you failed forward, you've learned fast. And so you're able to use that to keep moving forward. So therefore, you fail forwards less and less and grow forwards more and more. I do think there's times where when you've exhausted all avenues that it's time to let go. And I think, especially when it comes to business, people can be a bit too emotional, right? And understandably so, because a lot of people are passionate, it's their soul, they've given time. What was that, Shay?
I said it's like your child sometimes, you know, your little
Of
bit.
course. Yeah, it is, right? You've put everything into it. Um, and I think if certain things just aren't working, relationships, things in life, then there is no shame if you've tried everything in changing direction, if moving forwards. Of course I've failed many a times in life. I'm on my third business, but not because the other two failed, because I changed direction.
Because they
And I
became
think,
even better.
huh?
Because they became even better.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, I mean, after 9 months of depression, you come out of it, you see the world very differently. And what I learned from that is not to be emotional about business decision making. Of course, there's passion. I'm passionate about what I do. I care. It drives me. Um, but if I need to walk away, which I was almost close to doing in the end of last year because of what was going on internally, then I'll walk away. This too shall pass, right? And I'm not afraid of that. And I think a lot of people cling on to something because they fear the unknown, or what's on the other side is worse, or in some way it's a failure. And it's probably the failure is worse to hold on to something that isn't working, that's destroying you slowly, whether that be a relationship, whether it be a mindset, whether that be a business. That is, to me, worse than anything you can do. You don't, like the whole metaphor, you don't hold a burning rock in your hand, do you? You'd let it go. It's the same, except you're not feeling the burn physically, but it's eating your life. And it's being brave when you need to let go of something like that. So in terms of where's the balance, where's the line, I mean, it is a fine line.
Yeah.
um, but you, at the end of the day, you need to do what's right for you, for your existence, for your future. And sometimes that means making tough decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did say that to someone the other day, you know, what's it going to cost you not to, you know, take that action, which can be very uncertain and scary, but, you know, sometimes that's worth thinking about as well. And I guess the resistance I often get to a question like that is, how do you know that you've tried everything?
You don't. But if your soul and your heart and your head is like utterly exhausted, and you've got nothing left, then where do you go from there? If you've got nothing left, it's time to go. And actually, most people find it free.
Yeah, I agree. agree. Let's talk about that last piece then, which is like that piece about, doing things fearlessly, finding that confidence within yourself and, go forward without being afraid.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone that is afraid? Because it's an emotion that we all feel sometimes. Is there any magical ways to transcend?
I think the first thing is to be okay with being afraid,
Mm.
right? I know I said don't be afraid when that was my life wisdom, and I'll qualify that. But I do think that we judge ourselves for being afraid. Like we give ourselves a hard time. And I think fear is a natural part of our evolution. It's a natural part of our survival, and it's a natural part of being human beings. So first of all, don't judge yourself for being afraid. There's a great, I do a lot of running and I listen to a lot of motivational speakers. And there's a great guy, I can't remember his name, but he says, you know, hell is meeting the person you could have been,
Yeah, I remember that.
right? Uh, and when you think, oh my golly gosh, right? Um, it's like, wow. And if you've allowed fear to turn you into something that you're not, or hold you back for for what you could have been,
Mm.
then that is a frightening thought. Like I would hate to be in, I don't know if people religious or not, but whatever, the gates of hell or heaven, or the gates of transcension, or whatever you want to call it, right? And just seeing who I could have been.
Mm.
And that is just like scary,
Yeah.
right? So it's okay to be afraid, and it's okay to want more, and it's okay to desire more in life. When I said don't be afraid, it's almost taking that, packaging it, and using it as a driver, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what something to remember. Because when I said that, I think of so many, again, I was kind of like reeling back on choices I made when you asked me that question. And I think of so many decisions I made which were fear based,
Mm.
which I would have made completely different decisions if I wasn't afraid,
Mm.
or I acknowledged the fear for what it is and made the decisions despite. And that comes down to relationships, and that comes down to investment opportunities, and that comes down to things I could have done. Right now it's an interesting time because even in the business, we are spending a lot of money right now. We're investing a lot of money, more than I probably ever invested in marketing.
Wow.
And you know, again, intuitively, it feels I'm just like this is the. I mean, obviously, we looked at data too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, you know what? If that's what we need to spend, that's what we need to spend. So I'm not. I'm going. Don't be afraid, because what's beyond this is greater. And I think that's where I'm coming from when I'm saying that is don't be afraid. Beyond this is something greater.
Mm.
Um, and that's what I mean by that. So I'm not like, don't be ever, don't be scared ever. And don't, that's not what I mean, because it's going to be there. But I think some of the greatest places we've ended up is because we didn't allow fear to get in the way.
Mm.
And that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. I love that. You acknowledge it. And I mean, hopefully among the best of us, we'll let it fuel us to take us beyond where it's supposed to go. It's beautiful. Thank you.
No,
Um,
pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been a fascinating conversation with you today, Elliot.
It
Um,
has. I loved it. Thank you.
Me too. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our beautiful audience?
I think more than anything, I think the world right now is looking for hope. They're looking for great leaders.
Mm.
The world needs people to shine the light. And what I'd like to share more than anything is, now's that time to really shine the light, to be the person that offers hope and wisdom. This isn't the time to preach, tell. It's the pride. It's to be that a person that is supportive, that is of service, and not because it might or might not lead somewhere. I think really this is the time to use your voice for good, 100%. And that's what the world needs right now. It needs comfort, it needs guidance, it needs warmth. And my request is that you become that person, that you do that. That's really what I want to share, because that's what the world needs right now. And that's all I really wanted to say about that.
Wonderful. If our beautiful audience would like to connect with you, how can they do that?
Um, they can reach out to me on Facebook, Elliot Kay, ELLIOTKAY. Follow on Instagram, it's at Speaker Express. And of course, I mean, you're very welcome for the website and an email on the live. Have you got that? Like the hello.
Yeah, well, we can add it after the live. I know for those
Cool. Yeah.
watching,
So
there's
by
not
all
much
means, please.
information up there right now, but there will be after this.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah. So just email hello@speakerexpress.co.uk. Any of those channels I welcome, and I'll happy support, answer any questions anyone might have. That's, I think, the best way to do it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself and your beautiful family as well.
Thank you.
And well, I hope we get to see each other in person again very soon.
Definitely, 100%. It's happening. It's on.
It's on.
It's on.
Take care. Lots of love.
Bye bye.